Hi, my name is Dan Paulson, and welcome to my channel, Just One Truth. This video is the next installment in a series where what it's kind of boiling down to is I'm working through verses, and we're just going through analogs and showing how the analogs decode inside of us, how it contains the inner teaching in something that sounds like an outer lesson or something that looks outward, how we make that transition and how we use those pieces and parts. And I'm making comparisons between Jesus, the Buddha, and Lao Tzu because they have smaller, more compressed kind of teachings. They're not the same in a number of ways. Number one is that Lao Tzu and the Buddha both taught spiritual, inward-looking, heal-yourself methods. Jesus taught the same thing, but it's nested in a different way. It is held in a box called Christianity that when it looks outward, it looks to a different place. So it's hard to kind of unravel all of that. But if this sounds interesting to you, I'll post a link below to the introduction. And I would recommend probably going through the introduction and then just all of the videos that are in this playlist in sequence up to this one. I'm going to just keep building them off of each other. And I'm kind of approaching Jesus slowly. I'm sneaking up on it. I keep putting a little bit out there, but there's a reason for it. And I'm a little bit leery to just jump right into Jesus because everybody has a lot of familiarity with Jesus, in the West anyway, and have preconceived ideas about what his teachings are. And it can be difficult to unravel yourself from that. There's a lot of people that are already there, people that are like me, that there's people on board with this that are, let's figure out what Jesus is saying. He's not the Son of God. He's something different. There are people on board with that, but there are people who believe he's the Son of God. You don't touch that. And there are people who believe he didn't exist. It's all a bunch of crap. It's baloney. What I'm doing is introducing this process in an audience that I believe probably doesn't have a lot of familiarity with Lao Tzu and the Buddha, and that seeing this process work somewhere where you don't have a commitment to the outcome, you can kind of grow the idea of how this works. Then when we go approach Jesus, which has a different layer to it, there's something different going on with Jesus that makes it a little bit more complicated. So what I'm doing here, there's a method to the madness. I'm trying to establish something that is necessary to see as you move along. Again, it's not, there's a lot of parts. There are many parts to this. Okay, that having been said, what I want to do is just go through verbally the mental process of going through verses and analyzing what the heck does this mean and how do we put it together. And there's a couple of issues with some in here that I believe are fun to look at. They're not easy to see. When you look at them, you think, well, this doesn't really fit. It doesn't work. Because down the road, it would become clear. So we'll go down the road. Let me get there. I'm going to use two translations again to show how translators can change the way things sound. With Jesus' work, we're not worried about that. We'll get to that when we get there. But with I would say with the Tao Te Ching only. That's the one where translation from Chinese to English is an issue. So, but that's still important to look at here because it shows the analogs. What we're going to look at here is how the analogs have changed, but the lesson has not changed. We're going to be able to see that in the same verse, simply put or translated by two different people. And then there's a couple of other things in that verse that bear looking at because it shows a construction and it shows some issues. Anyway, okay, let's get into it. This is verse number 46, and again, I'm going to be using the Stephen Mitchell and the Gia Fu Fang are the two that I'm going to use here. It doesn't matter which ones, I think. A lot of people probably have this one, and it's fun because there's a lot of modern stuff in it. He's modernized some of the verbiage, but yeah, let's look at how you have to see this stuff. I'm going to read it first from the Gia Fu Fang. When the Tao is present in the universe, the horses haul manure. When the Tao is absent from the universe, war horses are bred outside the city. There is no greater sin than desire, no greater curse than discontent, no greater misfortune than wanting something for oneself. Therefore, he who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. First of all, let's look at what they're doing with the Tao, because all of a sudden I would be confused. We just covered a couple of verses where Lao Tzu said the Tao gives birth to everything, good and bad, not just that. It doesn't sound like the Tao comes and goes. It sounds like you are always in the Tao. Then you read this and it says when the Tao is present. So how could the Tao not be present? This is where there's an error or something has gone wrong in translation, or we can look at the term and be a little bit more flexible with it. I think what this doesn't mean that the Tao is present or isn't present. What this means is when the Tao is present in the universe, when functionality and knowledge of functionality within the Tao is present, because we're always in that field. We are always functioning with each other. And I do believe that. We can look at a couple of things. First of all, remembering this is 2,500 years ago, approximately, the origin of this. It was passed along word of mouth. It was written in some Chinese dialect that I don't know anything about. Whatever language it is, it's not something that I was familiar with. There's a lot of reasons why this might not be exactly right, and that we can flex a little bit with it and give and not be so rigid with it that we can't work with it. So in this case, the Tao is there. I think what we're looking for as we go through here, we'll see what's unfolding is that this is good Tao or bad Tao. When the good Tao is present in the universe, the horses haul manure. When understanding, when people are functioning with knowledge and unnaming things, the Tao is present in that manner. Let's talk for a second, though, about being in the zone. That is something that I think a lot of people today mistake that as for going into and getting out of the Tao. If I can get into the zone, that's the Tao. That's the flow I'm looking for. And that's not exactly right. Everybody is in their flow. Everybody's in the Tao. When you get into the zone, like Michael Jordan in that game where he's like making shots with his eyes shut and things like that, you are in the flow, but you're so good and you're so released and you are so letting things happen that's an example of how the flow can work, when you are so connected with it and so let go that everything just works right. That's how it works. By the same token, though, we know that if we are harboring things inside of us that are issues that we don't want to resolve, that those continue to unfold in our life too. We don't pay attention to what's happening, but we are in the Tao. We are experiencing that. We just don't like to look at it, so we're not friends with it. We don't recognize it. We don't look at it when we need to look at it. At any rate, I wanted to make that point. Being really in the zone doesn't mean getting in and out of the Tao. Everybody's in the Tao. I would call being in the zone is just a quality, a very desirable, maybe perhaps one of the highest qualities of experience or existence within the Tao that everybody is in. I guess a word of caution then, anytime you're doing Lao Tzu and using the Tao Te Ching, regardless of who's done the translation, is to be aware that if reference is made to the Tao being in or being out of the Tao sometimes, and other times that the Tao gives birth to everything. It is always that way. The Tao is always giving birth to everything. We're always in that field. And if you look at life in the cosmos, that's it. We are in that universal field, plus in the field that is the field of humans that we create from our own electromagnetic, whatever, that immeasurable stuff, the stuff that we can interact with a little bit, but you can't quite see it. So I think like in this case, what I do is I just maintain the idea that that's always the case, that when they're saying being in or out of the Tao, what they mean is being a quality participant in the effects of the Tao, or someone that's just going with the flow and you have no idea and you're just acting out life. Those are the two differences that I see that are probably the more realistic. And as you're reading through and studying on your own, if you use it that way, it'll make sense. It'll work that way. We haven't even started analyzing the verse yet. And you're going to find out that all that I just did there with the Tao doesn't even matter. I'm going to pop up the entire verse 46 right here. This is what it looks like in the book. When the Tao is present in the universe, the horses haul manure. When the Tao is absent from the universe, war horses are bred outside the city. There is no greater sin than desire. no greater curse than discontent, no greater misfortune than wanting something for oneself. Therefore, he who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. These are hard to work with, and you look at them and go, that's some weird stuff. Analyze them. Take a look at that first chunk right there. When the Tao is present in the universe, the horses haul manure. You can't do anything with that. You can look at it. Sounds good. You can't interact with it. When the Tao is absent from the universe, war horses are bred outside the city. You can't interact with that either. You can look at these and go, these are effects. There's nothing I can do there. Let's move on. There is no greater sin than desire. Ooh, I can do something with that. No greater curse than discontent. I can do something with that. No greater misfortune than wanting something for oneself. I can do something with that. But look at what happened. We went from that first section up there where we can't do anything with, and it was about the physical world. And in the very next section, we moved into the inner world. Right here is a layer of moving from outside to inside. This is our instruction right here. And then what is the last one? Therefore, he who knows that enough is enough will always have enough. You can't interact with that either. That's an effect. There's one piece in here that really we need to interact with, that center section. The rest of it is good to know. It's kind of a if-then. If you do this, then that's going to happen. This is going to show up in other works as well. You're going to find out that doing certain things in Christianity is going to put you into the graces of God, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. Those are the kind of things that you can't do anything with. You just look at them and go, those are parts of the shell. Those are parts of what hold this. They're parts of what carry it. They're parts of verbiage that make people want to pass it along, that give something, So when we look at this, then we go right to the center section. There is no greater sin than desire. Why is that? Desire is wanting, angst. It's not being settled. And this is an amazing time where we can break this verbiage down to its simplest form, but we have to be careful again. We know that this is an interpretation and not exactly what some old master said 2,005 years ago. It's a variant of that. It's always a variant of that. But he's saying there's no sin greater than desire. Desire is what you have there. Desire is the issue. No greater curse than discontent. Discontent is the issue. No greater misfortune than wanting something for oneself. So you got desire, discontent, and wanting. Those are the three issues right there. We go inside, we take them in. Is that what we have? We're discontented if we have desire. So we can get rid of discontent. That's a product of desire. Desire and wanting something for oneself are the same thing. But it's telling me that if I'm hanging on to things, and ultimately, what does that mean? This is where when you start putting things into words, it actually makes it more restrictive. It's harder to get the point across. But I'll start a little bit, and you have to toy with it in your own mind. There's no limitations. Words have limits. The mind can go places it's hard to describe. The thing is that throughout the day, in a life, a normal life, an individual might feel discontent and never even know it. They might not want to go to work. You have to go to work. There's a lot of things you have to do. Think of all the things. I don't want to work. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go here. I don't want to go there. I prefer this. I prefer that. It's not just big things like I want a big something here. I want a new house. This is just living with, oh God, man. Nothing I have is good. I mean, I want this. I want that. I don't like this. I don't like that. That is the problem right there. That is an indicator, though, of how one's life is unfolding. It's not necessarily, you don't look at this verse or at this teaching and go, okay, just stop doing that. One verse is not a standalone teaching. There's other parts to it. But when you analyze the verses, this is how you do it, and it breaks down to what? That's what it teaches in this verse here. This is one style of verse. They're not all this way, but you will find verses that are weird that way. It goes from outside to inside. Oh, that's what they're doing. They're taking you from the physical world to the spiritual world. Take that teaching, destroy your enemy. Oh, the enemy's up here. Take it from outside to inside. And when it goes inside first, the outside happens. The outside is the result of the inside, and not just for the individual, but for the humanity. For the humanity. Yeah, the product of everything that is going on in the world right now is a product of the accumulated psyches of all of the humans put together in their groups and their tribal nature that is still acting out without people realizing that that's what's happening. Okay, so you can take a verse and break it down into something that is a very specific teaching, and now you interact with it. If you can't interact with the verse, you haven't figured it out yet. There are probably verses that don't maybe interact with the person, but you always try that first. And like in the cases that we've been doing here, saying, the world needs to get together in order to be better. People that don't understand, they're causing problems, they're building war and all that. Yeah, that's true. But what are you doing when you're saying that? It's like you're joining a side, you're looking at it, you're saying, here's what needs to happen, but nothing is changing. You can't really interact with it. All you can do is observe it and get angst over it. You got to let it go, bring it in here and fix it up here. This is where you get rid of all of the issues. And then when the peace and the understanding and all of that is up here, then it happens out there. But it has to be cumulative. Okay, and we're kind of done learning from that first verse, but there's still more in it. If you actually were to look at the first section again, when the Tao is present in the universe, the horses haul manure. This is the universe up here. This is your universe. The horses are hauling manure. Manure is what? Manure is what helps your garden grow. It's what you are doing to nurture your garden. When the Tao is present, you're nurturing your garden. When the Tao is absent from your universe, war horses are bred outside the city. You're always on the defense. That would be what? We could call that discontent, right? You're always looking for what's going to be wrong. Yeah, that's what happens. That's it. So the verse does become something that is about you and not about the manure or the city. Okay, I want to introduce the Mitchell version. It is the exact same verse, different translator. Let's see what we have here. When a country is in harmony with the Tao, the factories make trucks and tractors. When a country goes counter to the Tao, warheads are stockpiled outside the cities. There is no greater illusion than fear, no greater wrong than preparing to defend yourself, no greater misfortune than having an enemy. Whoever can see through all fear will always be safe. Okay, can we get the same thing? Again, he's provided some modernization. Okay, let's just give it the same kind of analysis process as the last one. I won't go through it as extensively, though. I'll put it all here in one chunk, and what we have is the same thing up at the beginning. When a country is in harmony with the Tao, the factories make trucks and tractors. So we still have that same Tao issue. However, it went from universe to country, and trucks and tractors became the analog for the manure. It's still doing the same thing. What they're doing is they are fertilizing something. I don't have an issue with the country or universe being changed. The difficult thing is if country might make somebody who doesn't know how to turn it inward think it means, oh, my country. If it was universe, a person would look at it and go, wow, that's too big. That's not about my country. That's bigger. The country might kind of limit a seeker from finding it all the way. But if the seeker knows it doesn't matter, it's always about up here. This is the country. This is the universe. This is the land. This is whatever metaphor or analog you want to make it, that it's up there, then it's still okay. It holds what it's supposed to. When a country goes counter to the Tao, warheads are stockpiled out of its cities. So this verse does the exact same thing as the last verse did. It also is about the outer world and not the inner world. We're good. There is no greater illusion than fear, no greater wrong than preparing to defend yourself, no greater misfortune than having an enemy. So again, we see it shifted to inside, right? It now went from the world out there and trucks and tractors and bombs and warheads to fear and self-defense having an enemy. Okay, let's go sweep up the last one before we focus on that center section there. Whoever can see through all fear will always be safe. So the fun thing here is you can see that it says whoever can see through all fear. In the center section, there is no greater illusion than fear. So it kind of links those two together. But again, on the bottom one, you see that it is not something that is a specific instruction. You cannot interact with it. You can simply look at it and say, sounds nice. How do I do that? Okay, we go back up to the middle, and actually it doesn't tell us how to do that either. But here's what we get. There is no greater illusion than fear. No greater wrong than preparing to defend yourself. No greater misfortune than having an enemy. If you defend yourself, or if you prepare to defend yourself, it's because you have an enemy. If we turn this inward and use it upon ourselves, if we're defending ourselves against our own enemies, ultimately what that means is lying to ourselves or defending why we are doing something, why we are justifying our behavior, our actions, our beliefs, our judgments, our self-hurting behavior, all of the things that are counter to happy, joyful life. When we hold those things inside and we fear them, and we have to defend ourselves against that stuff, whoever can see through all that stuff, the last line, whoever can see through all fear will always be safe. So we have this block of fear inside of us is the only thing I can come up with on this one. And we have to get that. And I believe that's what he was going after. However, if we went back to the first verse, the teaching was, therefore he who knows that enough is enough will always have enough, and there is no greater sin than desire. So the first verse, the first interpretation, the way that it was interpreted by Fu Fang was that contentment, finding inner peace, is what you want, where you don't have the angst. You just don't feel that way. You live a life of not wishing, wanting, desiring. It's wrong. It's that you're just finding a way to make it all okay. In this case here, what we have, whoever can see through all fear will be safe. There's no greater illusion than fear, no greater wrong than preparing to... Okay, and just jumping ahead and pointing out the obvious, honestly, the first one indicated, the first one translated to be contented, to just be happy, just to not grasp and hang on to things. Content, not contempt, content. This one is about fear. Do not have fear. Can they be the same thing? Quite possibly if you work them through. If a person is contented, they probably have no fear of things. If they have no fear, they're probably contented. I think they can get you to the same place, but you can see that it can be difficult to unravel this stuff. And, sadly, what this also demonstrates is that you may not have everything that you need in that book that you're holding to find enlightenment. It might not have made it from its original source to where you are. Okay, in this series, I may keep jumping back to Lao Tzu sometimes for reference, but I'm going to move on from him. His verses will continue getting denser. There's varying degrees of density. There's a lot to look at there. But I don't want to focus on teaching. I got somewhere else to go. And I think this has to start at a shallower level and work gradually into it. And I do want to get to Jesus more. And maybe I'll just do that. I was going to do a couple of videos on the Buddha just to get everybody up and kind of show the comparisons between some Buddha verses and some of Jesus and Lao Tzu too. But maybe I'll just jump right into Jesus. I think that's what most people are more interested in from the Western standpoint. So anyway, this one just looked like a good, an academic video. This is kind of structure, look through, work it through, play with the verse, see how it works, see how it can be structured to be multi-layered, to have specific teachings at the verse level, but then multiple verses sectioned out that brings it from one place to another is another thing to look at. And then an overall package. Now we got page to page to page. This one means when you name something, it becomes what it is. This one means you must unname things. This one means, the whole body of work is another layer as well. So it continues that way, but it always goes inward. And be forewarned, if there's 70 verses in there, there's not 70 different points. There's probably 20 different points. And it's just said in different ways. All of the teachings are that way too. They kind of cross-support each other with different verbiage. It was a verbal process that had to go out into the land to your people who could not read, could not write. There were no schools. It wasn't their fault. They weren't stupid. They're smart people. They just didn't have our resources. You're giving them something that they can manage. They can handle it. Yeah. I'm going to do one last verse before I end this up, but this is one that I think is going to be fun, and I want to end it up right here. This is verse number 70, and I'm just going to read it from the Stephen Mitchell translation. My teachings are easy to understand and easy to put into practice. Yet your intellect will never grasp them, and if you try to practice them, you'll fail. My teachings are older than the world. How can you grasp their meaning? If you want to know me, look inside your heart. Okay, and remember, heart to them 2,500 years ago. Sensations, feelings, something, somehow I'm connected. I can think, and then I got my body feeling going on. Heart is, for them, healing the heart, getting their feelings to work better so that they didn't feel bad, so that they felt okay, and that life unfolded meant that no matter what practice they put into place, it had to change what was up here. They didn't know that's what they were doing. We do know, so we can add a layer of resolution to their teaching and just go straight there, right to the brain, right to the perceptions, right to the idea that you had an experience and you decided whether it was good or bad, and you stored it that way. And the longer you carry the stuff, the more life goes on, the more it adds to it, the harder it gets. That's what is here. Period. In all the possible ways you can work it out. And in working it through, if you had time, we don't have time today that they had. If you had time to go through that and work it through and figure out everything, you would be wiring your brain. It would take longer to do that than it would take to, how much time do we spend in media doing things like that? If that was not available, as to them it wasn't, they would have been working this through. They would have been wiring their brains this way. And they wouldn't be old and messed up like we are when they got it. Yeah, we got to jump on this. Anyway, okay, I hope that was helpful. I'm rambling off again like I do. I'm sorry about that. Hope it was helpful. And yeah, we'll get into Jesus more. Love one another. I'll see you in the next video.